I'm not going to go too back into my history. I think all that stuff's pretty well documented on my webpage and across the internet. What we're going to focus on today is our experience this year, how we met each other, how the process went, the struggles that we incurred, the decisions we had to make, all the different things that add up to a season. So for me, this is my first grow that I've done over 20 acres, and there's a lot of challenges. So to start off, I met Scott and his dad Harold at a hemp university event where I was one of the speakers, and it was an end of the year deal, and my slideshow didn't work, and I kind of just went, I really don't need a slideshow. We can pretty much just go off of what I know, and I felt pretty comfortable. And we met out there, and was talking about harvesting, and don't plant a seed that you don't have a place to dry it with, and just a lot of really good information. So after my talk, Scott and his dad came up to my table, and they said, they introduced themselves, and they said, well, we're going to be in touch. Well, a lot of people say that to me, and I nodded and talked, and I kind of knew that they would. And yeah, we started up a phone conversation. When we first got working together, we were on the phone every week or every other week, and they were asking me for guidance. And they're a part of my school, Hemp Farming Academy, and part of the deal is with Hemp Farming Academy is I'll always give any of my students, a free 5 minutes, no problem, 5, 10 minutes, whatever it takes. I answer my phone all the time. So they joined the school, and I started working with them and answer the questions. And then I was over the year, about different equipment and what kind of seeds to use and that sort of thing. And that went on, even through while I was stranded in Puerto Rico during the whole hit of the COVID. I mean, when it first started, I got in on the next day. They declared the pandemic down there, and they really took it serious in Puerto Rico. Basically they were on lockdown. You had to be in the house by 7 in the evening through 5 o'clock in the morning. If you got caught outside, $5,000 fine and/or 6 months in jail. They really weren't messing around. You couldn't go out on Sundays at all because everybody was afraid. They're a really religious country that people would be congregating at the churches. And yeah, it was pretty interesting being in Puerto Rico. But as soon as I got home, we started up our conversation, and they were looking for, a little bit more help. So they brought me in, and we started looking at drying facilities and seeds and all these different things to get the season going. They made a lot of really good choices during the process, and I was happy to join forces with them. They have a lot of regular agricultural experience as far as farming and mainly cattle. But one thing we found out really quick is when you're scaling up to, working on a 50-acre plot, that you really need the equipment, and you really need to be able to do things at a quicker pace. They were really excited. They wanted to kind of go big, and so I was all about it. I said, if you listen to me and do what I say, we'll have the best chance of being successful at the end of the year. So Scott, do you want to chip into those?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going back to when we first met you, I mean, we saw extreme value the first time we met, and that's what we were looking for. We had the land, we had the equipment, the majority of the equipment. We just needed guidance, someone to be able to take us down the road, and just to make sure this thing would be a success. We didn't want to go into it alone. Like I said, we're farmers. We do about 2 million pounds of wet grass a year, but going back to the fact, it's a different crop, and it's a lot different. So we knew that you were the guy, and it's been great ever since. We've had to pivot and make quite a few changes along the way, but I think it's been good.
Oh, it really has, good, definitely.
And just having someone that's experienced within the space is huge. Like I say, we've farmed for years, but it's a lot different crop.
Yeah, and the best thing they did was listen and not go into YouTube and get a bunch of these crazy ideas. And, I kind of had an idea of the way we needed to go and how we needed to do things to be successful at the end of the year. And the best thing about it, like I said before, they listened and
Right.
they acted on everything that we talked about. Thus, we've had a really successful grow season. It all started out, we like everybody to, when you're scaling up, things really change. We can all do, I come from the medical days. We can all do 50 or 100 plants pretty easy. But when you're scaling up to thousands of plants, and this year we did 58,000 plants, which was a huge jump. And you really have to be conscious of the amount of work that goes into it. You really got to have the right equipment. You got to have several tractors, and you really have to scale up. You really can't go in full your feed, which I'm a big, huge fan of, with backpack sprayers when you're doing 50 acres. So we started in, and the plants came in from the nursery. We think that's the best way to do it. We're all about seeds as opposed to clones, because over the years I've watched all these grows and I've been really observant. And the clones just don't seem to cut the mustard. They don't get big. They're not really super hardy. They're pest and disease. Um, they get diseases and pests a lot easier than seeds do. Seeds are more vigorous and they grow healthier. And there's what we, saw this year is a huge variance in a strain. Many different facets. When you buy bulk seed and you're buying 80,000 seeds, you're going to get a lot of variations. Not everything looks exactly the same. So there's and you kind of expect them to for the most part, but they don't. So there was still a lot of pivoting that needed to be going on, and some plants were earlier than others. So we really, and so we started back, and we started doing the planting. So we hand planted. We pretty much did everything by hand this year, because some of the equipment was in, and that's what we had to work with. And these things are all, timing is everything in agriculture in general. So they got a really good start at the beginning of June. We taught them exactly how we wanted to see these plants planted, and the group we were working with did a really good job of planting. What we found out down the road is that we had a hard pan issue. So as opposed to just, I could really see that taproot was hitting the bottom, and it was stagnating the growth. So I had to make the call on the move, and we topped 58,000 plants. We had two guys out there for a good 2 to 3 weeks, hand topping plants, which kind of made the difference. My theory is that taproot, which is that top cola, that top piece of the plant growing, was hidden there, and it wasn't going to really penetrate it very easily. I know we had a lot of nice loose soil between the plants. When we plant, we like to plant as far apart as possible. I think we planted like 4 feet apart, which really gave us the airflow we needed. And we're in a coastal region where it gets fog and moisture, and we wanted to make sure we could mitigate any kind of botrytis or mold that came upon us. So we topped the plants, and then we saw immediate growth, because those lateral roots, the tap root represents the top leaf structure on the plant. And once you top it, you're encouraging lateral root growth, which we had plenty of. And another thing we learned is everybody wants to grow these monster plants. But when you grow these monster plants, they become unmanageable. And what we found out this year is that a shorter, stockier, smaller plant really produced a better, more manageable plant.
On a large scale.
Yeah, on a large scale. It would take you months to harvest 58,000 plants if you had to break down every branch and then go through every branch. With these smaller plants, we're able just to cut them right out of the ground, transport them over where the workers went through them, and pick the best of the best. we decided instead of going after every little bit of the plant, we just wanted to focus on the best parts of the plant, the top colas. And when we topped them, there wasn't just one top cola. We had up to 10, 12, 15 colas, really nice crown of colas that we had to choose from, which, at the end of the day, I was doing the math yesterday, Scott, and we have 11 tons of flower that's ready to be sold. So the whole process was amazing, and then the male hunting is like the next thing. So, and then proper fertilization too. We really went back to the old school medical grow style, where we used fish on, which is a really popular fish product. And then we use kelp on. Kelp is always a great additive to use because it keeps the plant really healthy and green. And then we use some
fish boss.
Fish boss, which is another product too, which is a fish base, but it has phosphorus in it. And we kind of just segued from the fish on through the season. Early season was fish on. We always did fish boss, and then we kind of switched. At the end of the season, we were using more fish boss as opposed to fish on. So as the plants grew and got healthier, we used SCA 90, which is a sea solid product that comes out of Baja. I've been using it for years. It's really super mineral based and a lot of great things in it. And me and my wife have been doing this forever, and we've been using glacial rock dust and SCA 90 in our plants, and it really helps with the remineralization of the soil. And it gives the soil everything it needs to have the best quality plant, whether it's a tomato or watermelon or cannabis. The flavors, when we use rock dust and the SCA 90, the flavors just and smell and taste and everything just exploded. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about, whether you're growing cannabis or hemp, is the flavors, aromas, and taste. That's what people are really looking for. So that's what we tried to give them. So we do a lot of foliar feeding. They did a really great job of spreading out the fields so we could get the tractors down. They bought a custom made
80-foot boom spray.
Yeah.
Really cover a big swath.
Yeah. So they did a really great job of laying out the field so we could get this equipment down there, because you really can't have, and all this was done with Scott and Mario, and then they had 2 helpers, and then Christine and I were down there, once a week through the whole process. So between the 6 of us, we were able to manage the grow part of the whole process with just that many people. I mean, workforce is a challenge out there, as everybody probably knows about. Getting good workers who really want to work and want to work hard is really difficult to do. And then when you're dealing with these labor pools, these groups of migrant workers, it brings in its own challenge. I'm from San Diego. I grew up landscaping from when I was 12 years old, and the Hispanics gave me my work ethic. But those guys that taught me at this time are far and few between. They're like Scott says, they're a dying breed out there. So workforce is something you're really going to have a hard time with. We've had issues before with woofers who would come through our property, and they think that growing cannabis is sitting back smoking J's all day and contemplating the universe. Well, there's a lot more. There's time for that, but there's really a lot of work that needs to be done. So we've come a long way. We learned a lot of stuff. The next kind of phase was the male hunting, and we had 2 guys in the field walking the field for a month.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, at least a month, every day. And we were finding hermaphrodites. The guy who sold us the seeds, or the group that sold us the seeds, said we were going to find 15 males. Well, we ended up finding 38 males, and that's mixed with hermaphrodites too. So you really have to do your due diligence and get out there and make sure you get all those males, because if you don't, we were growing for smokable flower. We grew CBG this year, and we were growing for the best smokable flower possible. and it was great. But we had to have those guys out there. I mean, up until the week before they stopped, we were still finding hermaphrodites in the field, and that could cause big issues. You know, nobody who's growing smokable flower wants males in the mix and or seeds. You know, even the processors don't want to see seeds. So getting those males out was crucial. And then the next phase is getting ready for harvest, and harvest is a big, huge ordeal, especially when you're dealing with 58,000 plants. So we partnered up with these guys down in Medford, and they've been Jefferson Hemp Exchange, and they've been doing this harvesting. I've known Matt for years, and they've come up with drying on racks, which is, I think, is a really good process. A lot of people hang. I think hanging probably is the best, but the next best, and to be able to go through your crop at a quicker space. Now, when you just cut the nice buds off and you put them on racks, and you can go to my Facebook or Instagram and all of this stuff, as I documented the whole season, because the farmers have always been treated unfairly as far as the money distribution things goes. And I really wanted to show everybody all the steps it takes, the due diligence, the care, the handling, all the way through, because they really don't have an idea. Processors and people who are just joining the industry, they really have no idea all the work it takes to get that nice, perfect flower at the end of the season. So, you know, we started harvesting like the 21st. We had fires here in Oregon, which really didn't affect us. Where we are is we're like the middle of the state, kind of between Roseburg and Coos Bay, you know, an undisclosed location, like we like to refer to it as, in this beautiful valley, pristine valley, with a river that runs around the field, which is optimal because it's like a moat. So really, it's challenging for anybody who's thinking about trying to rip us off, because there's like a flowing river there year round. And I mean, the location was beautiful. The people were great to work with, and we just jumped on this harvest. And we had to figure out our own cadence and flow of the material. So we have COVID going on, so we can't have our employees on top of each other. And we really wanted to keep track of how much each group was going through every day or processing every day. So we can pivot a little bit and say, well, this group's a little too chatty and they're not getting all the work done. And so we need to like move one person out of there to another group and try to just keep it moving as quickly and smoothly as possible. Scott, again, I mean, the challenges we had with labor and keeping consistency, and you're working with these groups and they're bringing in new people all the time. So we're constantly training to the people how exactly we want the product to look.
Yeah, I'd say definitely the labor's was our biggest challenge.
Oh, hands down.
And I think it just comes with being on a 50-acre plot and having a pretty short window to do so, you know, coming from a coastal climate, to where we had our target date and we were going to hit it as close as we could. And definitely the labor really made it tough. It was tough.
So the labor kind of dictated how quickly we could go through it. So it really took us, it took us a month to get the harvest
28 days.
Yeah, 28 days of just pushing it really hard to get it done. Of course, there were in the coastal region of Oregon where, you know, we just started getting our first few rains. But last year, you know, the rains came early, the frost came early, everything came early, and it was really, it was a bad situation. It was a shit show all across Oregon. But the best thing it did, from my perspective, it weeded out all the shysters in the industry, the people that were just in it for the money. Like the universe said, we're not going to make it this easy. We're going to show you the worst case scenario when everybody dove in and threw all their money at it and everybody lost their butts. But for the tried and true farmers and hemp farmers that have been in the industry for a while, we know we always plan for the worst. And if anything happens better, well, then we've been given a little bit of break. But in agriculture, you always plan for the worst case scenario. And if it happens to be better, like it was this year, it gave us more of a window. In Oregon, yeah, it's a bonus. So in Oregon, the challenges are with harvesting in a La Nina year, like this year was that first rain. We always get that first rain on the West Coast here in like the end of September, and it's going to last about a week. But if you can make it past that week of rain, you got pretty good at Indian summer. Well, you get a shower here and there, but nothing too major. Like I was saying, we're just now getting our first rains here, significant rains here in Oregon and, Humboldt and all those places, and snow's on the mountains. So everybody's scrambling right now, but we wanted to be way ahead of that curve. Being in a coastal region, you're going to get botrytis, you're going to get issues, and it's just a race to get as much of the best product you can out of the fields. We got it out of the fields. We set up these little workstations. We had 3 people at each workstation. We would bring the product out of the fields. They would sort through it, pick the best stuff, and then put them onto the racks. So we had about 8 stations that when we had all the stations running, and basically guys would pull it off. They do a cursory pre-check, and then they would cut the tops off and hand them across, and then the second group would look at them again, make sure everything was looking good, and then stack them onto the racks. Now these racks stacked up 12 high, and then they went straight from there into a semi truck, where they were hauled from this Coos Bay area all the way down to Medford, Oregon, where we had how big is that building? Oh, it's got to be like
it's like
100,000 square. Yeah, it's like 100,000 square foot building where we dried all of our product at. And we had trucks going down daily, sometimes 2 trucks. What we were finding out is people think that if we throw more labor on it, they'll get it done quicker. Well, it's actually the reverse. You would throw more labor on it, less work would get done. So we had to work with the labor force, and finally at the end of the day, we're going to tell you guys everything. We had to bribe the supervisor and say, look, this needs to be done by this date. And I'm all like, supervisor to supervisor, I've got $2,000 in my hand, and if you get this thing done by Friday, exactly the way I got it, I'm going to give you $2,000. My boss isn't involved, your boss isn't involved. I know you run the crews, and I know what you guys can do. And by golly, that $2,000 was the best $2,000 we spent the whole season long. They did everything exactly the way we wanted it and got the whole deal. When the owner was trying to tell us, oh, you're going to have to cut down all these plants by yourself, 3 acres, and we really got it done. So labor's a really tough situation. You got to take control of the labor force, and then you got to give somebody incentive to get it done. That's what we found out. It's a sad state of affairs, and we were paying top dollar, $26.50 an hour for each one of these employees. Each one of them, 26. Last year it was so chaotic, it was like $30 an hour. So, but your top rate here in Oregon and along the West Coast is like $21.50 to $25 or $26. You're going to be paying out. The benefits of having a paid workforce that's going through somebody else is they're not your responsibility. You're hiring a labor company to come and take care of the labor, and the company and the people that they work with more were responsible for the labor, which actually works great for the farmer, because then they don't have to worry about people getting hurt on the job and other things. And towards the end of the season there, we had a surprise visit by the Oregon Department of Agriculture, and they were pleasantly surprised, let's put it that way. Scott and Christine met with them, and let me have Scott talk a little bit about how they felt about our operation.
Yeah, she was just real happy, to see a large scale hemp farm, to drive down into it, be wide out in the open, not hiding nothing. And then just having, a real clean environment for our workers. We had multiple bathrooms, hand washing stations, water for them to drink. We
Gloves,
took gloves,
masks.
masks, everything, for the COVID, and then just on sanitary purposes. And that was real good to see. We took real good care of them. And she thought seeing our farm had restored faith in the Oregon hemp program for her. So I think that was a huge comment she made to us. And I was real pleased to hear that. And
Oh yeah.
I felt fortunate that she came down and inspected us, and we got lots of good information from her. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, yeah, it was really good. And what we learned during the season too, it's best to work with the Watershed Council and people like
Right.
that. So we worked with them and we found a date that worked for both of us. And we kind of met in the middle. And somehow that made its way to all these people hang out with each other. So it made its way through the top. And, working with government officials, I've done a lot of it in my life. And I see it to be beneficial more than being harmful. We worked in San Diego. Me and my wife had the first collective garden, and it was set up like a true collective garden. You bought a light, you paid $50 a month. You spent time in the garden or with the community, and you got to take whatever you wanted. And we were really active in the San Diego City Council. Direct result of our raid was the first medical marijuana task force in San Diego. That led us to, we moved out of San Diego because it was really cost prohibitive and the water was so scarce. And the farming that I wanted to do, was pretty small scale, but it was cost prohibitive in San Diego. So we moved up to Williams, Oregon, where we lived for a few years. We were farm manager an organic seed farm, and we did wild crafting, hellebore, and chickweed, and arnica, and you name it, St. John's wort, and all these different things. And then we bought a place in Vancouver, Washington, which is right across the river from Portland, Oregon, and we've been there every time. And basically, my brand and my whole thing is about I grow organic vegetables and I grow organic cannabis and hemp, and that's the kind of basis for my brand. What we did learn, like I said, working with the different groups, the government groups, is highly beneficial. Most people run from it, but from our perspective, and Scott's and my daughter, my family's, we never broke the laws. You know what I mean? I always played by the books. We weren't mailing. I wasn't like running 50 pounds anywhere, any of that stuff. We had a small collective. We take care of our patients. Thus, it gave me the opportunity to work with the federal government. We did the first health hazard evaluation with CDC NIOSH back in 2005 on our farm. And our farm's a secure location where federal agents can learn, touch, and study cannabis. So little did I know, playing by the books at the end of the day was really going to benefit us. And I think it benefited the cannabis and hemp communities also, because if we're the first person that they run into setting standards and giving them information, I think they were a lot better off. We're a lot better off because of it, because they weren't a suit, because so many of these people are suits. We hugged them when they came on the property. We hugged them when they left, and I still am in contact with them. We worked on the vape cartridge thing, and they always bring me in for writing a couple pages on what I think the issues are. So I think that so many people are so afraid to work with government agencies, and I found it to be a huge benefit for us and the things that we've done. So, I encourage everybody to play by the rules. The agriculture people are really, there's so many people mixing the cannabis in with their hemp, to kind of hide it. And that really gives the whole hemp and cannabis industry kind of a stain, kind of a bad name from a government perspective. So by doing it right and playing by the rules and finding good partners who had the same morals and they wanted to do things correctly and properly, really has benefited us all through the whole thing. You want to talk a little bit?
Well, it goes back to just having positive relationships with everybody. Everything runs on relationships, and you only got to gain from it if you work with them.
Exactly.
It sure does. Yeah, that's a great aspect of dealing with this plant and the people is there's a lot of love in our community. So Thank you guys. Thank you guys for sharing that and the connection between the plant and the people and the love of the plant. And it's obvious you guys have put a lot of love into your product. Is all of your product spoken for, or is there
No,
a full
we're
can?
just finishing up drying right now. You know what I mean? And our initial plan was, if you look back at traditional medical marijuana and recreational marijuana, the best time of the year to sell your product is like between May and July before the light dep comes in. That's where you're going to get. So we kind of plan for that, that we're going to hold off on getting rid of too much product until we can get the better price at the end of the year. Thus, they built a 5,000 square foot state-of-the-art humidifier that has 3 5-ton HVAC units, heat exchangers, two of the largest dehumidifiers, and a fan system that can keep the product at the perfect temperature and at the perfect humidity. Because I think the days of everybody throwing everything in super sacks are long gone. You know, the most that go into our bags are 20, 22 pounds, maybe 23 pounds, because we don't want to damaging the other product. When you grow CBD, it's a whole nother plant compared to growing the CBD dominant varieties. The CBD dominant varieties have more terpenes, which means they have more issues with getting hot at the end of the end of the year. As we all know, the federal government's kind of changed their mind. They come in and said 0.3 THC decarboxylated is the future. Well, hopefully after the elections, and we hear everybody going, it's the will of the people, it's the voice of the people. Well, overwhelmingly, this whole primary season and voting season, we've had great success with many more states jumping on support. So I really think this is a valid point to talk to your legislators about, saying, look, the will of the people have spoken. Everywhere, every state that has it on a ballot legalizes it. You know, this plan is COVID proof. It's definitely benefits the small, medium, and large farmers. It all depends which category you want to jump into. Are you going to grow boutique high grade? Are you going to grow a more commercial crop? You know, our vision was to produce a boutique crop at a larger scale. And they gave, you know, working with these guys, they gave us the opportunity to prove our theories and to execute on them. So we feel, I feel super fortunate to meet these guys and to be able to farm with them this whole season. And like I said, our product isn't sold yet, but that's not really what our plan was. And, you know, plans are great, and stick to your plan as much as possible. But like Scott will say, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of pivoting and segueing and changing plans.
Be ready to do it.
Be ready to do it on a heartbeat, because the weather changes, the days change, your workforce changes, everything's constantly moving, fluid. So to stay calm and just go with the flow and do the work. You know, you got to get the job done. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you got to complete the task.